Excellent. Hello, I'm Björn Karlsson. I'm an associate professor at the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering in Iceland, and I have a PhD student there. I'm a specialist in fire safety and in risk assessment, risk analysis. And I have a PhD student working on risk analysis on rescue capabilities in the Arctic, Sóley Kaldal, and I will be talking about some of her work in this lecture. I also happen to work as the Director General of a state authority called the Iceland Construction Authority, but I would like to be speaking as a professor today because a professor can express himself in a far more irresponsible manner. But I will say a few words about the responsibilities of the Iceland Construction Authority, however, which explains some of our interests. And I will talk about civil protection a bit. Main part of my lecture will be on the use of risk management methods and how we can use them to weigh and measure what we do in the Arctic. I will then just give a very quick case study on how we use risk management to evaluate response to hazards, various options, give some conclusions finally. So the Iceland Construction Authority, it has a threefold main sort of a job. We're in charge of fire prevention, firefighting, and we run the Fire Service College, Rescue Service College, basically. And this has to do with rescue services in the urban area. If there's an incident in the mountains, there's a voluntary rescue service that tends to that. If there's an incident in the city or in the urban area, it's usually the fire brigade. It's still called the fire brigade, but it's really a rescue service. We're also in charge of electrical safety and building regulations, so and so. Civil protection and preparedness on land in Iceland are basically governed by sort of two legal entities. It's the chief of police, the Civil Protection Department, who have an overview role of this whole thing, but a certain part of this is actually the local rescue services by the local governments, and the Iceland Construction Authority sort of harmonizes that, and we oversee that kind of thing. So therefore we are also involved in this, and we cooperate very much with the Civil Protection Department in various ways. There are of course very many other actors involved, the Red Cross, and the rescue squads, and so on, so on, so on. However, at sea there are very many actors that have responsibility, like the Maritime Administration and very many people, but the Coast Guard will always somehow be at the center of things. They will sort of be there with their equipment and stuff. Very often they actually ask the local rescue service to come and join them. For example, if there's a fire on a vessel, they will get a few, maybe 4 or 5 firefighters from the local city rescue service to join them on the boat or in the helicopter or something like that and go and attack these things. So lots of authorities together who deal with this. Now the Iceland Construction Authorities has certain responsibilities in the Arctic. The Parliament of Iceland made the Iceland Construction Authority responsible for the review of any safety risk analysis and fire safety inspections and so on, so regarding oil prospecting in the Dept area, about 400 kilometers northeast of Iceland. We are also the building authority out there, so any fixed man-made structures, floating or fixed, we have to approve the building permit for this thing, which is not an easy thing to do, actually. It's going to be a bit all of this hasn't been formed very well yet. It's still being formed. So we really don't know exactly what these duties are. But we are very interested in trying to be prepared somehow. We are also, of course, concerned due to increased shipping and so on and so and so, but the Iceland Construction Authority has no legal responsibility whatsoever. But we do have a look at these things when we're having a look at the other response issues. And we work very, very closely with the University of Iceland. We've completed some EU-funded research projects together with Norway, Sweden, UK, and others, where we looked at response to incidents in the Arctic, and we did complete risk, a comprehensive risk analysis of the capabilities. We have a PhD, there's a PhD student at the University of Iceland with supervision from the Department of Risk Engineering at Lund University, that's my old department in Lund. Alison Bales at the School of Social Sciences, who also works very closely with the Arctic policy people who are here, and so and so. And so we work together in a network of many different people. Now this is the area that we're interested in. It's very far out there. So it's considerable concern with respect to rescue capabilities. Let me just, now I'm going to say a few words about the methodology of risk management. Why do we use that? What's that? Before I go into actually going into the case study, why would we use the methodology of risk management? Well, I'm just going to ask a few questions. What is risk management? What's the definition of risk? What different types of risks we have? Which types of risk analysis methods do we use? What is risk assessment? How does the public perceive risk, which is also very important? How do we communicate risk? What do we tell people? And how do we reduce the risk once we've mapped it up? I usually use a full semester at the university to talk about these things. I'm going to use a full 5 minutes right here now, ladies and gentlemen. So some of the questions that we ask with risk management is this: should we allow this activity? If we're going to forbid the drilling and exploration of oil at the Dreki area, we say it's too dangerous, our fishing is at risk, we're not going to allow any kind of prospecting out there. Should we then also forbid shipping with oil through Icelandic waters? Now, if we're going to allow one of these, shouldn't we allow the other? What is the risk? So we have to have some kind of way to measure. Why should we allow this? Why should we forbid the other? Risk management is a good way of answering this. Now, if we're going to allow it, do we need to reduce the risk? Which of the risk-reducing measures should we use? How far should we go? Risk management allows you to do that, measure it. If we're going to allow this, and we're going to reduce the risk this much, what other activity are we going to allow in this area? And so. So these are, and finally, once we've done all the preparation, and maybe there will be an accident, and then we have to be prepared for that. But we really want to be working here. We want to be reducing the risk and managing the risk. But if it happens, we're going to have to do a risk analysis on this also. We're going to have to do how many helicopters do we need, and so and so. And what is risk analysis and risk management? We say that the risk analysis, usually like this, you decide the scope of your analysis. You're going to look at this area or these kinds of incidents. You're going to find and map out the hazards, what can go wrong, and then you're going to analyze two things. What's the probability of something happening? And what's the consequence. Is it going to be terrible, or is it reasonable? Is it manageable, or what? So probability, risk is probability times consequence. Sometimes you've got the probability 40%, 60%. Sometimes the probability is a probability function. So Gaussian curve, there's a variable. Sometimes the consequence is death or life, 0, 1. Sometimes the consequence is something that increases and so and so. And what we do is we then compare this to the tolerable risk. Do we allow this? Are we going to allow it, or are we not going to allow it? And we're going to analyze the choices, and we're going to make then a risk reduction decision. And usually we will call this a risk sort of decision, and the whole process, the full process, we call risk management. When we go back and forth and analyze what can we do then, how do we reduce the risk, and so and so. So this is sort of what we call risk management. There are all kinds of different types of risk. You can have a direct damage, or something that increases, something that's irreversible. You can have a simple process, death, life, or something that continues over the years, an environmental hazard that kills all life over a long period of time. You can be talking about your own risk. This is my oil platform. Or you can be talking about other people's risk. The Icelandic nation will lose all their fisheries. The reason for your analysis can be somebody put a regulation there. The reason for your analysis can be I will lose my property, and therefore I want to reduce the risk, and so on. So there are three main types of risk analysis methods. So there's call it the checklist. Like the pilot goes through a checklist. You can have a sort of index method of some sorts. But what we do at the University of Iceland, we do quantitative risk analysis. So we figure out the probabilities, so the probability density curves, and we figure out the consequences. And we would typically put this up in an event tree, and we will say, this is where I manage my probabilities. It can be a 40-60 or something like that, or it could be a density curve of some sort. And this is where we deal with our consequences. And often, this is a very, very multidisciplinary thing. You can be talking about, will there be ice, will there not be ice? Will the oil be dispersing in ice or not? And how will it disperse? You can have extremely complicated models in here, like Gisli was telling us about, computational fluid dynamics, like what you use for weather forecasts or flow forecasts. You could be using very simple engineering models or extremely complicated models, and you need experts in all kinds of various different fields to sort of get from one place to another. And finally, you can calculate the risk of something happening. You can then check out, do some risk reducing things, and do the calculation again and compare things. There are very many parameters that influence the evaluation of risk. Now you're going to evaluate, is it okay, is it not? There are all kinds of variables depending on who takes the risk, who owns the risk, who bears the cost, who benefits from the results. And you can just imagine, if I have to make a decision, I'm going to stop drinking, I'm going to stop smoking. Is it worth it to live a really boring life, or is it not? And this is an easy question. It's just me and my risk. Imagine if I have to ask this: how much more fun will my neighbor have if I stop having a party and stop drinking and everything? Is it really worth it for me to stop drinking and all this stuff because my neighbor's going to have a good time? And this is the kind of decisions that we have to do all the time. There's a guy who owns an oil platform, and so and it's all these questions about not my backyard. When the Swedes produce nuclear fuel, they don't want to store it in Sweden. They want to sell it to Africa or somewhere else, and they don't want to hear about it in the newspapers. They don't want it discussed in society. Sometimes you actually want to have a discussion on it and so and so. When we're talking about rescue, usually we want an active and very open risk communication. We want to say to people, yes, there was an incident, we have no idea what happened, we don't know what we're going to do now, we'll talk to you again in 2 hours. So that's the kind of thing you want to say. You want to have an open and active communication. Now this is what we want to do when it comes to risk reduction. We want to do 1, 2, 3. We want to be up there. We want to either have inherent, we want to stop the risk, we want to prevent it, or we want to limit the risk. Now if something then happens, we want to be prepared, and then we're going to rescue and so on. So we want to work very hard on items 1, 2, and 3. Items 4, 5, and 6 can be very difficult, very expensive. Case study, very, very quickly. I got 2 minutes to do this one, so I'll just go. We map what can happen. These things can happen. These are the threats to the environment. This is the cause of the... So we list everything out. But then we boil this down into maybe just 2 scenarios. We take all of these things, we list everything we can think of, and then we boil it down to 2 scenarios. Something simple. A few people are affected and the environment. Or there are hundreds of people, or perhaps thousands. So this is characterized by a crew on a liner or something, or an oil platform and an environmental risk. The other one is a cruise ship or something like that. And what we find out is that we have 2 very constraining things. We have little time and we have little equipment. Those are the 2 constraints, time and equipment. And if we're going to save lives, we need helicopters. If we're going to save the environment, we need all the available equipment we can possibly get. And scenario 2, we have more people, we have very limited time, a few hours at the most. The equipment is, we need international help. And basically, I can't go through this. I'll just go straight to the conclusions. Somebody asked, do we have any chance of rescuing anybody? I'm going to be the professor now. I'm going to say straight out, honest to God, we don't have a chance. We have no capability at all out there. We've done our best. We've had rescue activity we've tried to practice. We've got people up there on the Greenland coast. We've tried to see what we can do. I'm sorry. We went through the calculations and the risk management thing of this whole thing, and we find that there's a 35% chance that we can save 5 people 200 kilometers out of Iceland, something like that. You can save 5 people. Hazards and dangers have a tendency to occur in the middle of the night, in the middle of a huge storm. Okay? We're not going to be able to do anything. We don't have capacity. We've done our best. We have a really great ship. We've got 3 helicopters. We're really doing well and all that, but let's face the music. Somebody asked, do we have a chance to save thousands of people on a cruise ship? No, we don't have that. If the disaster occurs, it's going to be a total, utter disaster. Let's be clear about that. We have to deal with a broad variety of natural hazards in Iceland, and we have a considerable experience of successful response to earthquakes, avalanches, volcanic eruptions, so and so and so and so. In spite of our smallness, there is a considerable expertise in various disciplines. Ice, all kinds of Arctic policy studies, international things, societal stuff, weather, and so and so. Technical risks, engineering, natural sciences, sociology, and so and so. So we have specialists, and Icelandic academics should cooperate much more in a multidisciplinary Arctic research. And finally, this is my final slide, efforts to cooperate in various fields at the University of Iceland include, we formed a Center for High North Engineering at the Engineering Institute at the University of Iceland. We've also been collaborating, a group of scientists, at the School of Engineering and Natural Sciences, and Ingeborg has been coordinating some of that work. We have also been working together with the School of Social Sciences and the Arctic Policy Studies group there, and the International Affairs group over there. We should pull together. Now, just today, Nordforsk, which is a funding organization, they've come out with a funding call, Responsible Development of the Arctic Opportunities and Challenging Pathways to Action. There's a funding to support establishment of a multidisciplinary Nordic Center of Excellence. And we at the University of Iceland, we should pull together our resources, be strong, because we have a lot of good experts in this area. Sorry about the rush. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I want to thank all the presenters for their input and sharing their expertise here with us. We have a lot to think about and talk about, and now we have 50 minutes for coffee, a coffee break outside there. And please enjoy, and then we go again for a panel discussion in 15 minutes.